You and I made it. It's Friday. Welcome, everyone, to Banfield. I'm so happy to have made it to Friday, and I'm glad you're here because I do have a lot to tell you tonight, and I have a lot to show you. If you have not seen the Hulu documentary on Ruby Franke yet, Run, Don't Walk, it is astounding. You might be familiar with Ruby Franke's story, the mom-fluencer with the YouTube channel 8 Passengers, telling us all how to raise our kids and be tough, except that she was being beyond tough to the point of being imprisoned for what she was doing to those kids. We thought we knew, what had happened, and we did not know until the 1,000 hours of absolute raw tape was released, and Hulu made a series about it. Because all those outtakes that she never intended to be public, they're public. And it is so bad. Kids helping other kids clean blood off the walls from the abuse that they suffered. Take a quick peek at this clip.
Fake being happy. Okay? I don't know if I can right now.
Yeah, that should tell you a lot. We've got a whole lot more on that story, plus clips, videos, all that coming ahead. And then Luigi Mangione is making headlines. Luigi doesn't think that the police officers at the McDonald's where he was having his hash browns should have searched his backpack. Do what now? Luigi, I'm sure you have your attributes. So many people love you. However, we have a few lessons for Luigi tonight on what reasonable search and seizure is, and when you are a suspect in a execution-style murder, could be probable cause to search your backpack. Anyway, I'm going to go over it with people way, way smarter than I am about that. A New York City cop who's been taught exactly when you're allowed to search and when you're allowed not to. So that's coming straight ahead. And then the governor of California has ordered a risk assessment for Lyle and Eric Menendez. Okay, I'm interested to see what comes of that. It will take 90 days, 3 months. It will cost thousands and thousands of dollars. I don't know what they'll find. Pretty much everything is out there. These guys are like, the epitome of perfect as inmates go. And so why would you spend that much money, that much time, take people's attention, government workers' attention away from whatever else they were doing, if you did not intend to release them? Because if it comes back double thumbs and you say no clemency, what was this exercise for? I tried everything to figure it out, and instead I called a judge. Not just any judge, a Los Angeles judge. A veteran. That's all coming because I think that I'm going to learn a lot about what's up in the governor's office. That's all coming ahead. But 18 months ago, we thought we knew it all. We thought we knew just how bad mommy influencer Ruby Franke was when it came to abusing her kids when the cameras were off. We figured we'd seen it all when she was arrested. After this doorbell video, along with body cam video from the cops, revealed the condition of those kids, those abused kids. They were starved. They were tortured. We also figured that since she pled guilty and got 30 years in prison, that was the end of the case until she's released. But, my friends, we were wrong. We now know a whole lot more about this YouTube star and what brought her down, and it is much worse than we thought. New behind-the-scenes footage of Ruby Franke's House of Horrors has just come crashing across our TV screens. A new 3-part Hulu docuseries called Devil in the Family, The Fall of Ruby Franke, includes 1,000 hours of unseen archival video that was shot by Ruby herself. But these, of course, are the outtakes of her YouTube show, the stuff that she did not want us to see. And it shows her berating and threatening and physically abusing her kids when they didn't say their lines or they didn't just hit their marks the way she wanted. Here is a quick preview of what I'm talking about.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door. He's got duct taped around each ankle. He's obviously covered in wounds.
Ms. Franke, how do you plead to count 1, child abuse?
Guilty.
To count 3, child abuse?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children. Guilty.
What Ruby has done, it just crossed a line of abusive to just psychotic.
My wife, Ruby's sole ambition was to be seen as the perfect mom. And so she decided to create a YouTube channel. And we became aid passengers.
Thumbs up, subscribe. Our entire schedule revolved around YouTube. It felt more like a set than a house.
She just wanted to show the view of a Mormon happy family.
But they only saw what we wanted to show them.
Sit her down on the flipping couch. Okay, move it. If I hear one more word, get out.
The devil knocked, and we opened the door.
Welcome to Connections. I'm Jody Hildebrand.
Jody was a therapist, and she would prey on the weak. She was excellent at exploiting Mormon anxiety.
Jody began to live at our home. It was uncomfortably intimate. Weird things started happening. Ruby said the children were demonically possessed. That was the spark that blew the powder keg.
911 emergency.
Hi, my name is Sherry Franke, and my neighbors have been telling me that my 4 younger siblings have been left home alone for about 4 or 5 days.
Open the door!
It was unlike anything I've ever seen.
It's like a ghost story.
I'm still recording! I'm worried about the kids.
Why didn't you stand up to say, this is nonsense? If I dwell on that question, it eats me alive.
Fake being happy. Okay?
I don't know if I can right now.
The series includes rare interviews with Ruby Franke's husband, Kevin Franke, and their 2 oldest children, Chad and Sherry. They rip to shreds the squeaky clean image that Ruby presented in her 8 Passengers show. 6 of those passengers were her kids, who were often tied up, locked in the basement, or forced to sleep outside in the cold if their YouTube performances weren't up to snuff. In one now infamous clip that turned the internet really against Ruby, she took away the bedroom of her son Chad for 7 months, and she forced him to sleep on a beanbag. But she'd also withhold food from her kids to dangerous levels, and at least once she chopped off all of her daughter's hair for daring to eat. When the kids were finally rescued in August of 2023, police found them emaciated after one of them escaped to a neighbor's house with open wounds and duct tape wrapped around his ankles and his wrists. But Ruby wasn't alone in committing her crimes. Her guru therapist, Jody Hildebrand, was also locked up for 30 years, having been the Svengali behind much of this abuse. In the new docuseries, the 4 youngest kids are conspicuously absent, or their faces are blurred, which is not surprising, given what Ruby's now 11-year-old daughter just wrote in a statement last month, and I quote, "I know I am stuck with the trauma of YouTube. Even now, I can barely make friends because my whole life I was the center of attention. But now, without even realizing it, I seek attention from others, or I feel like they don't like me. And then those people think I'm mean." I want to bring in 2 people who have been following this case longer than almost anyone. Lauren and John Matthias are the hosts of the very popular podcast and YouTube channel, Hidden True Crime. Guys, it's good to have you back on the show. Thanks so much for doing this. I just feel like I can't even breathe, seeing those clips and knowing the details of how severely these kids were being tortured, literally tortured. And that last clip where Ruby says, "Smile and be happy," for the camera, and this catatonic child is saying, "I just don't know if I can right now." Lauren, maybe I can start with you, and you could explain the progression of her YouTube presence Because it seemed like it was all organic. Cameras were always rolling, and it was natural, and it clearly turned to this.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch. What we see is this squeaky clean family, right? This wholesome family that we all want to be like, and yet it showed how it sort of evolved into, oh wow, we're making so much money now. Let's keep, bringing in more and more and more, and that they almost say they felt like they were being blessed by God with all of the money. The abundance was a blessing, that they were doing something right, and yet behind the scenes, receiving all this blessing is one thing, but behind the scenes, it's actually borderline abusive, where she's screaming, she's yelling, she's saying to fake being happy. And then it sort of shifts to sort of now people are saying, you know what, you're not the mom we thought you were, taking away Chad's bed. And then it gets to the shame and the disappointment and the anger in the comments. Ashleigh, how cruel comments can be. And Franke starts getting them. And then all of a sudden, she's like, you know what, I need something more. And then then that is where she invites someone else into her life.
And that's Jody, who was so twisted in her philosophies about family and love and raising children. I mean, she ultimately coached Ruby into being this abuser, which is interesting, though, John, because if you ask the kids, at least Cherry, she says, oh, well, hold on a second. Ruby was abusive before the YouTube channel. What do you make of that?
I agree. I think you see those moments in the documentary. The documentary does a great job of looking behind the curtain and showing you those behaviors that she was engaging in before she met Jody. There's this moment in the documentary that just, even I was, gasping for breath because it was so extreme. She grabs one of her children's mouths, and she's grabbing the mouth and she's holding it shut and she's squeezing. And it's such an aggressive moment. It's completely unnecessary because her child's not behaving in that moment, right? And so I think that's one of those moments that really foreshadows everything to come.
Lauren, I did not know that these 1,000 hours of footage existed in a box, and that the director had those hours, and obviously Hulu has spent 1,000 hours at least going over them. And I think what might be, apart from just the awfulness that we're now able to witness, the fascinating part was that some of these kids said that they thought it would be better to perform and be on the YouTube channel because Ruby was nicer when the cameras rolled. So let's get those cameras rolling to avoid the monster that we live with in the dark.
Yeah, can you imagine that? Wanting to constantly perform, it's so cruel. It's like being a circus animal, which we now realize is such a cruel thing. And to say you have to perform and, if I do this, it will be better and she will be kinder to me and things will happen. And, you mentioned that youngest daughter who's now speaking out, that youngest victim. And she said as much. She said, I don't even know how to act normally now because I feel like I have to perform to get attention. And that is what was going on in this Ruby Franke house this entire time was, I am going to be cruel and I am going to be cruel to you unless you can perform and smile for our YouTube channel.
John, the revelations were kind of jarring, to say the least, when I heard that here she is, trying to portray the perfect Mormon family, but then in these outtakes, she's going into freakish trances, and she's declaring that her children are demons, and then we learn she's a prepper, prepping for the apocalypse, and all of my thoughts went to Lori Vallow, because that is carbon copy, crazy philosophy of somebody who killed her kids.
Yeah, I think if this had gone further, I think it's certainly possible that type of violence could have transpired. But my thoughts are that this quest, the commonality, this quest for perfectionism is insidious, right? Because that is an unobtainable goal. And I think both of them kind of went down that rabbit hole of pursuing this extreme perfectionism of belief, religion, of culture, right? Keeping up with the Joneses, all of that stuff. And so I think we kind of saw where that led.
Do you see that stuff as a clinical psychologist? Like when you see that, do you hearken back to your practice and say, I can see this pattern. It's clear as a bell. Yes, but maybe not so in such an extreme manner. I think it's certainly that a lot of perfectionism is based in shame. And so I think that might be where a lot of psychologists look when they see this type of presentation. But I mean, it's one thing to be a perfectionist. It's another to base your entire life, around an unrealistic perfectionism that almost reaches into being fictional. Lauren, talk to me about this incredible moment that Sherry and Chad, the two eldest kids, share in this docuseries, the Hulu docuseries, about Chad's nose bleeding from the abuse and Sherry being forced to help clean up the blood on the wall.
Yes. If you notice, there's one line in the video that you showed where Sherry states she went from being abusive to psychotic. And I think that's a really important statement because what we learned is Ruby just didn't break bad overnight. We learned that there was always some physical abuse, verbal abuse in this house. And it's shocking to hear Sherry and Chad share this moment in the documentary where Sherry says, yeah, remember your nose bleeding? Yeah, I remember. And then stating, yeah, I remember wiping blood off of the walls. So we are also learning that while there is this devil in the family who is Jodi Hildebrandt, it seems as if Jodi gave Ruby permission to be who she always was.
Yeah, that's an incredibly well put theory. Guys, I'm so appreciative that you joined me to talk through this. I sort of just needed a friend, after going through all these details. Yeah. I'm glad you two have each other. And John, I'm so glad that you have the expertise that you have as well. Lauren Mathias, John Mathias, thanks. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Thanks, Ash.
So it's always good to see the Mathiases. I also want to let you know if you're interested in cases like this and true crime in general, I invite you to check out my podcast, Drop Dead Serious. That's the subject matter. We do these cases. We dig in deep. It's available wherever you get your true crime podcast fix. My hour-long conversation with Wendy Williams is dropping this Thursday, so do check it out. And still to come on this show, Luigi Mangione is not one bit happy about where he currently is, and who would be? It's jail. He's charged with executing a CEO in the street. But now he's filing a motion to toss some of those charges out. Seems Luigi thinks that police in this country don't have the right to search his backpack after a tip that he was inside a McDonald's having breakfast. Now, I watch cop shows all the time, and I know you do too. So is he nuts? Isn't it standard operating procedure? You get your bag searched. The video and the expert to set Luigi straight is next.
Feeling so confident.
I stopped hanging out with the guys because I didn't want to hear the wisecracks.
I started taking Nutrafol because I had seen that it worked with my friend.
Nutrafol really takes the time to do the research, to do the clinical studies. And I really respect how it works from the inside out.
Nutrafol was able to bring my hair back to life, and it keeps getting thicker and fuller.
Oh! It felt real good to ditch the hat.
Hair growth starts from the inside at Nutrafol.com.
We expected a bold play from Luigi Mangione's lawyers. I mean, the death penalty is at stake here, right? But a line from Dora the Explorer, I did not see that coming. Backpack, backpack. Luigi apparently has a beef with the way police treated his backpack. Do you remember when he was in the McDonald's, he got arrested there in Pennsylvania? A witness recognized him as the fugitive wanted in the execution of a healthcare CEO in New York, and they called 911, so police responded. And they found right there, Luigi eating his hash browns with the bushy eyebrows. Same eyebrows that were seen in the photos of the wanted man. But what happened next was key. They searched his backpack. And lo and behold, he had a 3D printed weapon that seemed to match the murder weapon, and a stash of fake IDs, one of which was allegedly used by the killer. Also inside the backpack, clothing that matched what the killer was wearing. In the business that I am in, that is what you call bad facts. They are facts that help prosecutors nail you to the cross. But Luigi's lawyers say those bad facts should be buried facts. The cops in Pennsylvania didn't have the right to search that backpack inside that McDonald's. And they go further, saying that cops didn't have the right to detain him there either, while they peppered him with questions. To which I say, I watch On Patrol Live almost every weekend. And I see standard operating procedure when police pull someone over for probable cause, like a tail light is out or somebody speeding or swerving. 9 times out of 10, a backpack or a purse is searched based on that probable cause, which is teeny tiny. And based on the need for officer safety, too, which is really big because lots of people are packing. I want you to see for yourself. Here's a compilation of On Patrol Live that is currently streaming on Peacock.
We're going to conduct a search of the car because there's open containers. What is it?
Dope.
Oh,
27 grams. Well, it looks like that.
And where was it at? Yeah. All right.
Who's on the passenger side?
So when a search of the car by Deputy Mathis, they've located a gun. It looks like it was underneath the driver's side. And about 27 grams of meth.
So this is what was in his pockets.
Yeah, here's a big old meth. Some knives, toothpicks.
This is meth.
Yeah, this is meth too.
Is he breathing? Yeah, he is breathing. He's breathing and he's had a pulse. The counterfeit perk 30s stamped with M on one side, 30 on the other. They're pressed with fentanyl.
Cars of Isaac can hear lots of yelling and screaming.
Feel the residue?
Yeah.
Let's throw her in cuffs too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 bags of Molly, along with extra packaging, all consistent with stales. It's over trafficking weight in the state of Florida of 14 grams.
Did you see that? Bags, backpacks, contents of which are spread out on either a tailgate or the hood of a car. That looks like operating procedure to me that is standard. They check the bag if there's probable cause to do so. Probable cause is pretty small, too, in this particular situation. And Luigi was ID'd by a tipster as someone who looked like a murderer, right? A fugitive murderer. I'm joined now by Joe Cardinale. He is a retired lieutenant commander in the NYPD. Joe, is there anything you can think of that could give Luigi's lawyer any ammo to win this motion?
No, I don't think she has a prayer with this one, unless there's something on video that we don't know about that was alluded to, that she sees, that she wants to directly go to. But the standard operating procedure that you just laid out so eloquently with the videos that you just showed rises to another level when you're dealing with somebody like Luigi Mangione, whose face was all over nationwide, all right, all over the place. And somebody did recognize him, calls it in, the cops respond, and I think they were very professional from what I've seen on the video. And now they come across this, everything keeps rising with the suspicion and with, that they identify him. They look, yeah, this guy looks like it. He starts getting nervous and they go inside. Now they have to go into that bag. They have to, because now you're dealing with somebody who you beyond reasonably suspect that this is the person wanted for the homicide, the cold-blooded murder in New York City. So now you turn around, you look at this guy, you say, I got to check this bag. You have to. 2 partners there, one's watching, the other one's going through it, and they come up with the gun, they come up with everything, and then they put everything back in. The gun,
the IDs, right? Joe, I'm going to get to that part in a second, but Joe, they literally came to the restaurant because someone said, I think that murderer's here. And they come to the restaurant and they look in his face, which is all over the news. He's the #1 fugitive in the United States. And all you need to do is look at his face. And to me, again, I am not in your line of work, that is probable cause. I think we've got this guy. And I mentioned safety as well. Officers are constantly at risk of being shot, constantly at risk of whatever could be in that bag. And so going through that bag to me would be a natural. Real quickly, another complaint of the officer, of the attorney. They repacked the backpack and took the backpack and Luigi into the cruiser along with them. What is wrong with repacking the evidence into the bag to take the whole kit and caboodle in for processing?
I don't understand what the problem is with that, because if one of my cops came back and that backpack wasn't searched and brought it back to the station house, I'd have a problem with them. So they put it back into the container that it was found, the backpack, which is evidence. So they put everything back in there, and I'm sure it was inventoried when they got back to the station house. So I don't see anything wrong with the procedure here. I would actually be, getting on the cops if they didn't do what they did over here. These cops acted very professional. They weren't rough with him. They weren't demeaning to him. They handled themselves very professionally. And this is a murderer we're talking about here. This isn't a car stop with a broken taillight.
Yeah, accused. Listen, I got 10 seconds left, but I got to ask you this because it's important. The lawyer says that Luigi was held there, detained, not told he was free to go, grilled for 15 minutes with a delayed Miranda warning. He apparently said the words, no, when he was asked if he wanted to talk to the cops. But nowhere do I see he said, I want my lawyer, which is where Miranda triggers and that's it. You can't use anything after that. Am I wrong? I mean, as a cop, don't you know that the minute they say, I want my lawyer, it's kind of over the talking?
Right at that point, but you're still allowed to ask pedigree questions and everything because you have this person in custody, and they're not going specifically, did you do this in New York City? It's pedigree information. They're very calm about it. They're progressive with it, and they take it back to the station house. I think everything was done by the book unless there's something on those videos that we don't know about. They're just reaching, she has to. This is a sensationalized case. He's getting a lot of notices, with people that are supporting him with murals and everything. Come on. She has to do this.
She's got to throw the spaghetti at the fridge. Joe Cardinelli, It's great to see you. Thank you for this.
Same here, Ashley.
Have a great weekend. All right, folks, coming up next, what does the California governor really think about Lyle and Eric Menendez? He's about to spend tens of thousands of dollars to assess just how risky it might be to release the brothers into the public. Why would he do that? Knowing that they're not just model prisoners, they've been model citizens for almost 3.5 decades while locked up for murder. What happens if the assessment comes back clean? Would he still refuse to grant clemency? Sure wish I could ask a California judge for insight here. Oh, good. I happen to have one, a veteran. He's next.
I even got 30% off my first auto ship order with fast free shipping. Carewell makes shopping for home health care supplies easy. Get 30% off your first order at carewell.com.
If anybody tells you that they know what's going to happen with the Menendez brothers and their efforts to be freed from prison, you can tell them they're full of it. Because as things stand right now, nobody knows. Not Lyle and Eric's family, not their attorneys, not the DA in Los Angeles. And as for the governor, he's kind of sending mixed signals. In a nutshell, Eric and Lyle currently have 3 pathways to freedom. A resentencing hearing 20 days from now, a habeas corpus petition for a new trial, that seems to be going nowhere, and an all-out clemency, which is freedom that the governor can grant with the stroke of a pen. And my head spun around the minute I heard Gavin Newsom say that he's planning to have his government assess the risk of releasing Lyle and Eric. Not the political risk. The actual risk of releasing a murderer or two back into the public. Would the governor do that if he's not planning to grant the brothers clemency? Would he waste all that time and taxpayer money? Because I think we can all agree, as inmates go, the Menendez brothers have been a paragon of rehabilitation in prison. Squeaky clean and very, very, very productive. I know somebody who can help me navigate this conundrum. It's Judge Peter Lichtman. He spent 18 years on the bench in the municipal and superior courts in Los Angeles County. Judge Lichtman, thank you for being here. What is the governor up to here?
Well, look, it's a political football, unfortunately. You completely identified the 3 paths. So you've got the resentencing, the request for a new trial, and the clemency. The district attorney has already come out and said that he's objecting to any kind of new trial procedure. The resentencing issue, the interesting aspect about this is if the district attorney agrees to go with the resentencing, and if they do remove the LWOP, which is life without possibility of parole, it goes directly to the state parole board. The irony is, so is the governor. The governor is going to the state parole board right now. And the reason for that is he's looking for a political pathway forward, which is, how do I do this? I don't want to run a risk. And so both sides, either the judicial perspective or the clemency route or the political route, is going to end up falling on the shoulders of the state parole board, interestingly enough. And both avenues are looking for a scapegoat in case something goes wrong.
So let me ask you this. I'm just assuming based on the files, because I've read most or not, if not all the public available ones, these guys are perfect. I mean, they are what we want in inmates. They look completely rehabilitated. They've done everything right. I'm not scared to live beside them. I'm not going to speak for everybody. I can't stand what happened to their parents. I hate that crime. But if this is what our prison system is supposed to be, they've achieved it. I assume that risk assessment is going to come back squeaky clean. So then what if the governor then says, well, thanks for doing all that work, I'm not granting clemency? Would that be a political disaster for him?
You know, the question is, he's got to measure and weigh what the sentiment in the state of California is with the people and quite frankly, in the United States about releasing these individuals. That's what he has to do. It's a political risk for him. So if the state parole board comes back and says they're model prisoners, we don't see any particular risk, you've identified it exactly. He has to then determine, is it a political risk to him to do it? And so for him to even send it to the state parole board, he's already kind of moving in the direction that he's leaning towards clemency. I mean, I would be surprised if he's not thinking that already, but he could deny it. He could easily come back and say, look, I just don't think it's appropriate. I would be taking out of the hands of the jurors that decided in the second trial. Don't forget, the issue in the second trial came down to premeditation, and they found premeditation. In the first trial and the second trial, the state Supreme Court removed and eliminated the imperfect self-defense. So they were left with premeditation.
But what a waste of time and money. I mean, the risk assessment is not small. It's like 3 months long. And, you know, I should ask you, this is your business, not mine. How big a deal is it? How much work is it? What will it cost? And if it's all for nothing, that seems crazy. Well, you're absolutely correct. But the interesting thing is, take a look at the avenues. In each avenue, in other words, if there is a resentencing, I don't think there'll be a new trial granted at all. I think that's just not going to happen. I think their attorney, Mr. Garagos, knows full well that's not going to happen. The district attorney's already come out and said it's not going to happen, or he's objecting. So it's down to resentencing. If they then decide to take the middle path and say, okay, we think we'll resentence, and they remove the LWOP, it's automatically going to go to the state parole board, automatically. So in either avenue that they're approaching, either way, through the governor clemency or through the resentencing, it ends up in the lap of the state parole board. So you say, well, what about all the money? It's going to end up there. They'll use the work product. Right. What you're saying is they'll use the work product no matter what, if there's a positive outcome. I just wonder what it's going to look like for Gavin Newsom if he orders all of this very publicly on his podcast, and then it comes back squeaky clean, which we all assume it will, and then he says, well, I'm going to punt. It just feels weird. Judge Peter Lichtman, please come back every day that we ask you, because you're just that guy I always need.
Thank you very much. Happy to come back.
Have a good weekend. Still to come, folks. It was not something anyone expected. In the ritzy apartment complex in upscale Princeton, New Jersey, a brother-on-brother murder. But the details we've learned since almost paralyzed that community. A bloody knife, a bloody fork, and a bloody plate were found near the victim's body. You are going to need a drink to hear the rest. Next.
Go to omahasteaks.com/TV. You'll get 12 Omaha Steaks burgers free with your order. Visit omahasteaks.com/TV today and save big on the quality you deserve.
You can use any noun you want here. Shockwaves, brutality, horror. None is going to match what actually went on inside a $1 million apartment in upscale Princeton, New Jersey, 6 days ago. For starters, the victim was the little brother of the alleged killer. We had heard that the younger brother was beaten with a golf club and stabbed to death, and that the family cat was set on fire by the killer. But the details that have emerged since were just next level. A bloody plate, fork, and knife were found near the victim, and it is believed that the killer cut out and ate the younger brother's eyeball. Matthew Hurtgen is 31 years old, a former soccer star at Wesleyan University, and he's in custody. His younger brother, Joseph, was just 26, also a former soccer star, but at the University of Michigan, and he is dead. Matthew's first hearing was yesterday. Both sides asked for a week-long delay. He's facing murder in the first, animal cruelty, and weapons charges. Karen Wall is a reporter for the Jersey Shore region of Patch.com. She's been covering this story from the beginning. Karen, do you have with your sources any indication, or are police any closer to motive in this awful crime?
Our sources have been really tight-lipped on this. We've been trying to get even confirmation of what the New York Post reported, and we haven't been able to get much of anything out of them since they released the charges on Monday. Is that been enormously frustrating, and I know that...
Yeah, how are your police sources normally? Do you struggle with them?
In New Jersey, it can be very difficult. There are some that I have a long-time relationship with, and when it's a really salacious case, I guess is the best way to describe it, they can be very tight-lipped until they're ready to release information. So
the next court hearing for Matthew Hurtgen is March 6th, and it was pushed back. Do you know why they're pushing it back? And that's both sides. That's defense and prosecution.
Yeah, it's pretty standard in New Jersey when you have a case like this that there's always a 3-day delay, 72 hours for them to just get their hands around the initial part of the case. I think because of the nature of this case, there's much more detail. They still haven't even announced the autopsy results. So that may be what's slowing things down a little bit. But when they have that hearing on March 6th, we're going to get a lot of details about what they found, because the probable cause affidavit, which we've been trying to get since Monday, will have all of those details, and probably more details than we really want to know, to be honest.
Yeah, I was just going to say you better brace yourself for that, Karen. It's going to be hard. My suspicion, based on what we know so far, at least from reporting, is that this is going to be a really tricky competency issue. Do you hear anything about the fact that this is just going to be a story that is going to go on for a very long time? Somebody who's capable of that kind of violence, if he's guilty, doesn't sound like he's competent to stand trial.
Yeah, I think that's very likely what we're going to see, just based on what we were able to find even in his social media postings. One of the things that was hard, I spent probably 5 hours on Tuesday just trying to comb through social media, and the poetry on his page, on Matthew's page, was pretty hair-raising. But it wasn't just the poetry. If you look through his postings, there's the poetry, but there's also a pretty significant gap in his social media postings. There's a photo from 2018 where he's with friends and he's smiling and he's happy. And then the next posting isn't until 2022. And it's looks like it's a picture of almost like a plague doctor mask. And on there, he commented, and I was just double checking it, something to the effect of who is doing the counting, who is doing the listening. It kind of evoked thoughts of, are they counting, like during the plague when they were counting the dead? That's kind of what struck me when I was reading it.
Yeah, I mean, he had a poem that said blood oozing out of his eye, his body surrounded by fire. And here we have the reporting that the eyeball may have been eaten and then that the family cat was set on fire. I feel for this family. I know there's one other brother that was pictured at one point. I just feel so much for them. Karen, let's make a date if we can, just to try to learn more about what happened and what the next steps are. I really appreciate this tonight.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Karen Wall reporting for us tonight. What a story. Coming up, the increasingly mysterious death of actor Gene Hackman and his wife. Not only is Hollywood and his Santa Fe community heartbroken, but police are baffled, especially after what they discovered today. That's next. The bodies had been there for days, likely 10 days to be exact. And the scene was confusing, to say the least. Actor Gene Hackman was lying dead in the mudroom. His pacemaker last pinged February 17th. His much younger wife, Betsy Arawaka, a concert pianist, she was dead in the bathroom. Also dead, one of the 3 family dogs, a German Shepherd found in his crate. The other 2 dogs were alive on the property. It sure looked like a carbon monoxide event, but today, police said the tests proved otherwise. There was no evidence of violence or foul play. So now the mystery has deepened even further. How did these 2 people die? The sheriff has now turned his attention to the prescription pill bottle and the pills that were found near Hackman's wife, saying that, quote, it is very important evidence. A search warrant says police found thyroid and blood pressure medication and Tylenol, but it's unclear if these medications were the same pills that were found scattered near Hackman's wife. Police also collected 2 cell phones, not unusual. It could take 3 months or longer for the toxicology results to provide any more clues. And so until then, the mystery continues. Thank you for watching tonight. I remind you, we got some really cool stuff coming up on Drop Dead Serious, my podcast. Right now, there's a full episode with Charlie Webster, the host and creator of Scamanda. She goes real deep on Amanda, the conversations that she's had with Amanda recently. If you haven't heard or seen the Hulu and ABC doc or the podcast, Scamanda, Run, Don't Walk. And then I encourage you on Thursday to jump in as well, because my 1-hour-long conversation with Wendy Williams, no questions off limits, and wow, was it revealing. That drops as well. Drop Dead Serious, check it out. Meantime, Cuomo starts right now.